The food I used to avoid at all costs ended up being the one thing that helped me feel steadier in the mornings. Ain't that something? For years, I was told to stay away from anything with fat, anything sour, anything that looked too strong for my sugar. But last month, I tried something different. Not because I wanted to, but because I was plain tired of feeling like a walking pharmacy. Within 3 days, I noticed my blood sugar wasn't swinging up and down like it used to. By day 7. Well, I'll just say I haven't felt this clear-headed in years. I ain't here to sell you anything. I'm just an old man who tried something that made me feel better. And thank the Lord, it was simpler than I ever expected. No strict diets. No magic powders. Just a handful of old-school foods. The kind our grandparents probably knew about. I kept it up, and something clicked. My doctor said my A1C was better. But honestly, what mattered more was waking up and not dreading the day. If you ever felt like that, this might be worth hearing. Tap like and subscribe if you're over 60 and tired of feeling tired. There's hope, and it tastes better than you'd expect. Number 10. Barberry and berberine-rich foods. The first time I saw barberries, I thought they were dried cranberries that had shrunk in the sun. Tiny, deep red, a little wrinkled, not something you'd expect to help with blood sugar. But I read about this thing inside them called berberine, and I figured why not give it a shot? I started adding a spoonful to my morning oats. Didn't change much else. And let me tell you, I felt steadier. Less of that crash around 10 a.m. and more of that calm, focused kind of energy. Like my body was finally responding the way it was supposed to. Back in the day, folks used barberries in Persian stews and teas, especially for people who were too sweet, if you catch my meaning. Turns out they were onto something. Modern research says berberine acts a lot like metformin, helps lower blood sugar and A1C without messing with your gut. I didn't expect much, but after 3 weeks, even my doctor raised an eyebrow. Whatever you're doing, she said, keep doing it. And I smiled, thinking, thank the Lord for the little things we overlook. Now, if you can't find barberries at your local store, there's still hope. The compound, berberine, is also sold in capsule form. I tried it for a while when I ran out of the berries, and it still worked, though I did miss that tart flavor in my morning routine. Just make sure to take it with food, or it might upset your stomach a bit. I usually took mine after breakfast, right before heading out to check the mailbox. What surprised me most was how something so small could make such a difference. We're used to thinking we need big changes to feel better. But this one was subtle, like oiling a rusty hinge. No drama, just smoother days. And it didn't cost much, either. A bag of dried barberries lasted me almost a month. I still say a prayer before every meal. Old habit. But now I whisper a quiet thanks for the way God hides healing in places we forget to look. Like a sour little berry that somehow helped me feel like myself again. Number 9. Wild blueberries. I always liked blueberries, especially on pancakes or with a bit of cream, but I never knew there was a wild kind that packed even more punch. They're smaller, darker, and grow mostly up north, in places like Maine. A friend of mine from church mailed me a frozen bag one winter. Said, try these, they're the good ones. I tossed a handful into my oatmeal one morning, and after a few days, I noticed something strange. I didn't get that heavy, sleepy feeling after breakfast anymore. I just felt balanced. Turns out these wild blueberries aren't just tasty. They help your body process sugar more gently. Scientists found they can cut blood sugar spikes by nearly a quarter. I didn't understand all the details, but I know how I felt. Fewer crashes, steadier energy, and no more mid-morning yawns. It's like someone smoothed out the roller coaster my sugar used to ride every day. Back in the day, native tribes used wild blueberries as medicine, not just food. They dried them in the sun, stored them for winter, and mixed them with meats and grains. They knew these little berries had power long before anyone put it in a lab report. Makes you wonder how much wisdom we've lost trying to simplify nature. Now, I keep a bag in the freezer. I grab a small bowl in the evening, just a handful while I watch the news. You don't need to eat a mountain of them. It's the regular rhythm that makes the difference. Sometimes I mix them with a little Greek yogurt, sometimes just plain. Every time I scoop them out, I say, God sure knew what he was doing. Who would have thought something so small could help quiet the storm in my blood? Number 8, turmeric with black pepper. I'll never forget the first time I tried turmeric tea. It smelled earthy, almost like the old wooden floorboards in my granddad's cabin. I added a pinch of black pepper like I'd read online. Didn't think much of it, just figured it couldn't hurt. By the end of the week, something strange started to happen. The tightness in my hands eased up. My knees didn't bark at me after walking to the mailbox. But what really surprised me was how my after-meal sugar numbers looked, lower and steadier, like my body wasn't fighting so hard. Turmeric's been used for centuries, mostly in Indian and Southeast Asian cooking. But what folks don't always realize is that it's the curcumin inside that does the heavy lifting. And curcumin? It's like a whisper to your cells that says, calm down. Less inflammation means better insulin response. But here's the catch. Without black pepper, most of that curcumin just passes right through you. The pepper wakes it up, helps your body actually use it. It's like giving your old radio a new set of batteries. I started adding it to scrambled eggs, soups, even just warm water with a splash of lemon and a dash of honey. Some days I take it in capsule form if I'm on the go, but honestly, I enjoy the ritual of stirring it into something warm. It's comforting, like sitting by a fire. I feel it most in the evenings, less swelling in my fingers, and my blood sugar doesn't jump all over the place like it used to after dinner. What's funny is, my grandma used to cook with turmeric all the time, said it kept the bad wind away. I used to laugh, but now I think she knew something my science books never taught me. Isn't it wild how old wisdom and modern research sometimes meet in the middle, like two old friends who finally learn to speak the same language? I give thanks every time I open that yellow jar. It's messy, sure, stains everything it touches, but maybe that's part of the beauty. Healing ain't always clean. Sometimes it shows up in bright colors, strong smells, and unexpected places. And sometimes the thing that turns your health around is sitting right there on the spice rack. Number 7, apple cider vinegar. It wasn't something I planned to drink. Apple cider vinegar just sat there in the back of our pantry for years. My wife used it for cleaning windows and shining copper pots. But one day, I read about folks using it before meals to help manage blood sugar. Sounded odd, but I was curious. I stirred a teaspoon into a glass of warm water and sipped it slow before lunch. The taste? Sharp, strong, a little like biting into a sour apple with a punch. But by the end of the week, something felt different. I wasn't dragging to the afternoons anymore. Vinegar, especially the raw, unfiltered kind with a mother, helps slow how quickly food turns to sugar in your bloodstream. It doesn't block anything, just calms the process down. I read that it can lower fasting blood sugar by around 6% and boost insulin sensitivity by over 30%. That might sound like numbers on a chart, but to me, it meant clearer afternoons, fewer naps, and more time doing things I enjoy, like tinkering in the garage or taking a walk without feeling wiped out. It became a habit. I'd mix it into water before my two biggest meals, lunch and dinner, sometimes with a splash of lemon or a touch of cinnamon to soften the bite. I always drank with a straw and followed with a rinse of water. You learn quick that vinegar and tooth enamel don't get along. I kept it simple, just 1 teaspoon, never more than 2 a day. And no, it's not a miracle, but it helped me feel more even, like my body wasn't spinning its wheels after eating. My buddy Ron gave me the funniest look when he saw me stirring vinegar into a mason jar before church potluck. "You making moonshine now?" he said. I laughed and told him it was my new secret weapon. He tried it once and said it reminded him of his grandma's apple pie gone wrong. But a month later, he was doing it too. It's the little things that spread, not the flashy trends, but the old-time remedies that actually stick around. There's something satisfying about using something so humble and cheap to feel better. No packaging, no brand name label, just an old bottle on the shelf that most folks forget. That's what I love about it. Makes me feel like I've taken a bit of power back, one sour sip at a time. Number 6, Ceylon cinnamon. Most folks think all cinnamon is the same. I did too, until I found out the kind I'd been sprinkling on my toast for years wasn't doing me any favors. It was only when I stumbled onto something called Ceylon cinnamon, the true cinnamon, that things began to shift. I wasn't expecting miracles, just a little help, but after adding it to my coffee each morning, I started to feel a difference in the way my body handled breakfast. Less fog, fewer cravings. Like something in me finally got the message to settle down. Ceylon cinnamon's gentler than the regular kind. Softer bark, milder smell, but it works harder when it comes to sugar. I read they can help lower fasting glucose by nearly 30%. That's no small thing. And more importantly for me, it doesn't overload the liver like the cashakine does. Just a pinch every day, and I felt like my body wasn't in such a rush to store sugar. I wasn't getting that jittery feeling mid-morning. Either more like a slow, steady release of energy. I started sprinkling it into just about everything. Oatmeal, coffee, plain yogurt, even a little on roasted sweet potatoes. I'd keep a jar right next to the salt and pepper. Made it easy to remember. My daughter thought I was going a little overboard until she saw my numbers. Then she asked where I bought it. That's how you know something's working. When your kids take notes. There's something warm and old-fashioned about cinnamon. The smell reminds me of Christmas mornings, my wife baking her famous rolls while the snow piled up outside. Using it now feels like I'm tapping into something comforting, steady. Maybe that's why it helps my body find balance too. Like a quiet reminder that sweet things don't always come at a cost. Ever notice how certain flavors feel like home? That's what Ceylon cinnamon became for me. Not just a spice, but a signal that maybe I was finally treating my body like something worth caring for. Number 5, leafy greens. I used to think salads were rabbit food. I mean, how could a pile of leaves possibly make a difference in a body that's been through 6 decades of bacon, biscuits, and black coffee? But I started adding a handful of spinach here, a bit of kale there. Not because I wanted to, but because I was tired of feeling worn out after every meal. It wasn't overnight, but after a couple weeks, I noticed I wasn't dragging myself to the recliner after lunch anymore. My belly didn't bloat like it used to, and I wasn't craving sweets by 3 p.m. Turns out those greens are packed with magnesium, a quiet little mineral that helps your body do something mighty, respond better to insulin. Most people don't even know they're running low on it. I sure didn't. But when you get enough, it's like the gears start turning again. Not perfectly, but smoother, more steady. And greens are one of the richest natural sources. God put the medicine right in the garden. We just forgot to pick it. I started tossing greens into everything. Scrambled eggs in the morning, add spinach. Soup at lunch, a handful of chard. Even made a warm salad one night with sautéed arugula and garlic. Surprised even myself. It doesn't have to be raw or fancy. Just regular, cheap greens from the grocery store. Wasn't long before I noticed my pants fitting looser and my numbers looking steadier. Small change, big reward. My neighbor Earl, he's 72 and set in his ways, watched me load my cart with kale once and asked if I'd lost a bet. I laughed and told him, no, but I might just win back a few good years. That got him thinking. A week later, I saw a bag of spinach in his truck. Progress comes slow, but it comes. Some of us spent a lifetime thinking health had to come from a prescription bottle. But maybe it starts in a salad bowl, or in a cast iron skillet with a little olive oil and a handful of something green and bitter. That's where mine started. Anyway, number 4, fatty fish. I used to think fish was something you order on Fridays, or pulled out during hurricane season. Growing up in Alabama, we ate plenty of catfish, fried of course, but I never paid much mind to the oily kinds like salmon or sardines. That changed when I read how certain fish could help with inflammation and insulin. I gave wild-caught salmon a shot one Sunday, pan-seared with a little lemon and herbs. Didn't expect much, but over the next couple weeks, I felt different. Not lighter exactly, just clearer, like something in me wasn't working so hard all the time. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel are loaded with omega-3s, those good fats that your body actually wants. Turns out, they don't just help the heart. They also play a big role in how your cells respond to insulin. I'd read studies saying folks who ate fatty fish a few times a week saw up to a 43% boost in insulin sensitivity. That's a big number. And for me, it translated into more stable blood sugar after meals and less of that sluggish post-dinner slump. The trick was making it part of my routine. I'd bake a tray of salmon on Sunday and use it through the week, flaked into salads, tucked into wraps, or just cold with some mustard and pickles. Sardines, too, believe it or not, packed in olive oil, eaten right out of the tin with crackers, reminded me of camping trips with my uncle, where food came simple and straight from the can. Only now it was helping me feel better, sharper, steadier, more alert after meals. I remember my grandson poking at a piece of grilled mackerel on my plate and saying, "Is that old people food?" I laughed and told him, "Nope, it's smart people food." He wrinkled his nose, but took a bite anyway. Funny thing is, he asked for it again the next week. Sometimes, the best lessons don't come with lectures, just lunch. I don't eat fish every single day, but I aim for 2 or 3 times a week. It's not about being perfect. Lord knows I've had my share of fried everything. But these days, when I open a can of sardines or grill a fillet of salmon, I feel like I'm doing something kind for this old body. Not flashy, not fancy, just quietly helpful. Like the way God gives us strength in small, steady ways. Not all at once, but enough to keep going. Number 3, avocado. You ever meet a food that doesn't look like much, but ends up surprising the daylights out of you? That was avocado for me. I picked one up at the store just out of curiosity. Dark green, a little rough on the outside, soft when you press it just right. I brought it home, sliced it open, and saw that smooth pale green inside. Mashed it up with some lemon and salt, spread it on a piece of toast. What I didn't expect was how full and steady I felt for hours afterward. No sugar crash, no urge to snack, just peace. Avocados are rich in good fats, the kind that help calm down inflammation and keep your insulin working the way it should. There's solid research showing they can improve how your body handles sugar after meals by over 30%. That lines up with what I felt. I wasn't getting those highs and lows anymore. Just steady energy, like my body wasn't panicking after every bite. And the best part? It tasted good. Creamy, clean, and filling, like something that belongs on your plate. I started adding avocado to my routine in small ways. On toast in the morning, sliced into salads, even just scooped out with a spoon, and a pinch of sea salt before dinner. It's easy once you get the hang of picking the right ones. Not too hard, not too soft. They become a quiet favorite of mine. No fuss, no drama, just real food that actually helps. One Sunday after church, I brought guacamole to a potluck. Some folks were suspicious, thought it was too trendy. But after a few bites with crackers, the bowl was gone. My friend Hank even asked for the recipe. I told him there wasn't one, just avocado, lemon, salt, and a little faith. He laughed and said maybe he'd give it a shot. That's the kind of change I like, small, simple, and shared. Every time I cut into one of those green beauties, I feel like I'm doing something gentle for this old body. Nothing extreme, nothing radical. Just a quiet act of care, like giving the engine a little oil before the next long drive. And in a world full of chaos, that kind of calm, that's worth holding on to. Number 2, nuts, walnuts, and almonds. They were just sitting there on the kitchen counter, a little wooden bowl filled with walnuts and almonds. I hadn't planned on eating anything, but I grabbed a few while waiting for my coffee to brew. They were crunchy, earthy, and left a buttery feel in my mouth. Didn't think much of it until later that morning, when I realized I wasn't pacing around the kitchen looking for a snack like I usually do. I felt full, calm, even a bit sharper. That's when I started paying attention. I made it a daily habit. And sure enough, those sugar dips between meals started to disappear. What's wild is how something so ordinary can make such a big difference. Walnuts and almonds are packed with fiber, healthy fats, and magnesium, all of which support blood sugar control. Some studies say just a handful a day can cut your diabetes risk by up to 27%. For me, it wasn't about the numbers. It was about how I felt. Less groggy, fewer cravings, and a belly that didn't balloon up every time I ate a sandwich. I wasn't changing my whole life, just trading my afternoon chips for something with real benefits. I started keeping little jars of nuts around the house, one by the recliner, one in the truck, even a bag in my tackle box. I'd eat a few mid-morning or right before supper if I felt that creeping hunger. No guilt, no sugar crash afterward. Sometimes I'd mix in a few dried cranberries or a pinch of sea salt, depending on my mood. It became part of my rhythm, not a diet, just a choice I made without overthinking. My wife noticed I wasn't so cranky before dinner, and honestly, I noticed too. My uncle used to say, "If it don't crunch, it ain't a snack." I always thought he meant potato chips, but I think he was onto something deeper. Crunchy foods satisfy more than the stomach. They give your jaw something to work on, your mind something to slow down with. There's a satisfaction in cracking into a walnut that no granola bar ever gave me. It's real food. It reminds you that eating can be simple again, and that maybe our ancestors weren't so far off when they sat around shelling nuts by hand. These days, I see that little bowl on the counter as more than a snack tray. It's a reminder that small, steady choices stack up over time. That healing doesn't always come from big swings or miracle cures, but from honoring what your body asks for when it's had enough of the noise. And when I pop a walnut into my mouth, I don't just taste a nut, I taste a little bit of peace. Number 1, fermented foods. I'll be honest, I used to walk right past the jars of sauerkraut at the grocery store. Looked like pickled cabbage floating in swamp water. Not exactly appetizing. But when I started reading about how gut health affects blood sugar, I figured I'd give a shot. I picked up a small jar, popped it open at home, and braced myself for the first bite. Tangy, crisp, a little funky, but not bad. The surprise came later that week. I felt lighter after meals. My stomach wasn't as tight, and I wasn't rushing to the bathroom after lunch. Something had settled in me, in a good way. Fermented foods, like kefir, plain yogurt, sauerkraut, kombucha, are packed with beneficial bacteria that help your gut do its job better. And when your gut is working right, your insulin starts working better too. I learned that over 70% of your immune system is tied to your gut. So when the balance of good bugs down there improves, so does everything else. I wasn't expecting it, but after 2 weeks of adding a few spoonfuls of yogurt or kraut to my meals, my sugar numbers after eating started to level out. Less spike, more steady. My routine became pretty simple. Plain Greek yogurt with some berries in the morning. A small glass of kombucha in the afternoon. A forkful of kimchi or sauerkraut next to dinner. Just little bits, not big bowls. That's the beauty of fermented foods. A little goes a long way. They bring flavor, crunch, and a kind of old-world feel to your plate. Makes you feel like you're doing something both smart and old-fashioned at the same time. One Sunday, I brought a little bowl of homemade pickled cabbage to a church picnic. Folks were skeptical at first. Some even wrinkled their noses. But after a few bites, people came back for seconds. It sparked a whole conversation about how our grandparents used to ferment everything. Not because it was trendy, but because it worked. We laughed, shared recipes, and for a moment, it felt like we were part of something timeless again. Now, when I open a jar of sauerkraut or sip on kefir, I don't just think about sugar or health. I think about balance. Not just in the gut, but in life. Sometimes it's the old, slightly sour, bubbling over parts of life that bring the most unexpected healing. Funny how a little fermented bite can help you feel more whole. If you told me a year ago that a handful of berries, a spoonful of vinegar, and a few bites of cabbage could change the way I felt waking up in the morning, I probably would have smiled and nodded and gone right back to my old habits. But something in me got tired of feeling like I was fading. So I gave these little changes a shot. Not all at once. Just one thing at a time, like building a new rhythm. And to my surprise, it wasn't the effort that brought the biggest change. It was a consistency. A week became 2. 2 became a month. And before long, my numbers were better, but more than that, I felt better. I know what it feels like to carry the weight of diabetes on your back, like you're always one step behind your own body, always guessing what's going to send your sugar flying or crashing. But I also know that healing doesn't always look like a breakthrough. Sometimes it's just waking up with a little more energy, a walk that doesn't leave you breathless, a quiet moment in the morning without the brain fog. That's where these foods help me, not by fixing everything, but by giving my body a little help where it needed it most. Of course, I still check in with my doctor. I still test my blood. I don't see food as a cure, but I do see it as a tool. And these past few months, I've been using better tools. Real food, clean ingredients. The kind of stuff our grandparents might have recognized. And the beauty is, most of it isn't expensive or hard to find. It just takes a willingness to look at your plate a little differently and maybe trade the old quick fix mindset for something more nourishing. I'm not perfect, never have been. I still enjoy a slice of pie now and then, and some days I skip the sauerkraut. But the foundation has changed. I know what makes me feel strong now, what gives me peace after a meal instead of worry. And that kind of knowing, that's something no medication ever gave me. It came from slowing down, paying attention, and trusting that maybe God gave us more than we realize when he filled the earth with color, flavor, and good soil. So if you're watching this and feeling unsure, just start somewhere. Pick one thing. Try it for 7 days. Not to fix everything overnight, but to show your body a little kindness. It's never too late to reset the rhythm. Take care of yourselves, and God bless y'all.